All right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Fitfam. This is Hilary, this is Dr. Olympia.
And this is Doug, the Formulator.
And we're real excited for this week, actually, is Thanksgiving week. And
The best week ever.
it is great because it's the week after the last show of the year and just enjoy family and the holidays. And it's a good time to be grateful. And so, actually, kind of start off with that today. We gave a message the other day at the office about being grateful. And I knew there were some people in the office that had some pretty tragic things happen lately. And so things weren't necessarily going well. And we just talked about looking at everything from a point of view of being grateful. Not that you have to be happy, but just being grateful, and that you can be grateful in the moment. That there's lessons to be learned. There you can be grateful for the ability to be able to breathe and to be here, to be able to handle the things that are happening, and be grateful for things that are also exciting and just great to be around.
I love that. So last week, the podcast was geared around something that I'm very passionate about, and Doug too. And this week, it's geared towards something that Doug has become increasingly passionate about, and especially lately. So
Yeah, so it's about
peptides.
It's one of those things that it's really interesting because you have usually this distinction, right, between Western medicine, allopathic medicine, which is prescription drugs, and the normal, go to the doctor and there's germ and, germ theory type thing. And then the holistic world of nutrition and exercise and supplementation and fitness and everything that we deal with. And we spend a lot of time, as most of you know, we train doctors around the nation. Thousands every year come to our seminars and we work with every day. And most of them are navigating that field. They're in the medical world. They're wanting to learn more about nutrition because most of them are older medical doctors that have been like, you know what, this really doesn't work to fix a problem. We're covering symptoms and hopefully their body will heal, but we're not doing anything to help them heal and to get to the root cause. And then you have the other doctors, the holistic, that are all holistic, and they sometimes don't go and use Western medicine like they need at times when it's needed. And our job is to bridge the gap. And I mention that just because peptides are really, in my opinion, that bridge for a lot of people, like kind of a higher end of the holistic world, but yet in the medical world, a way for them to get quick, fast results and get the body to actually heal itself. But it's in that gray area.
So it kind of is. So why don't we jump into it, and why don't you kind of explain what a peptide is?
Okay, good question. I mean, peptides are usually these little vials that you come and they're powder in them, and you reconstitute them. You put bacteriostatic water in them, and then you use like a little insulin needle and inject them. And so those are mainly what people think of as peptides. And they're subcutaneous, meaning it's just a little insulin needle, and they can put it anywhere because it works throughout the whole body systemically. So just kind of like a physical view of what a peptide is, right? It's out there. But I think your question more is like, what in the world? Okay, that's great. It's this liquid that people inject, but what is it? And the easiest way to explain it, and you can tell me, I think we've worked on this for quite a while. I always run stuff past Hilary to see how well she thinks that people would understand it, and she understands it, because our job's really to try to simplify things that are complex.
Right? That's Doug's nice way of saying I'm just not as smart as he is.
No, actually the opposite. She her presence teaches things, and I've got to go into detail. But I think that the best way to explain peptides is think of a protein, right? So let's say chicken breast, and that chicken breast is a full protein, which is made up of hundreds and thousands even of amino acids. And so amino acids, like you might have heard of tryptophan coming at Thanksgiving, right? People say, we get tired after we eat Thanksgiving because the turkey had tryptophan in it. That's an amino acid. Glutamine's an amino acid. Arginine. You might have heard of different amino acids. A lot of bodybuilders take branch chain amino acids, leucine, isoleucine, valine. Anyways, those are all amino acids. And a protein is made up of all the amino acids bound together, and they're just put next to each other differently to make a different protein, whether it's salmon, chicken, fish, soy, whatever it might be. So that's a protein. But when the protein's broken down, before it gets to a single amino acid, if it's somewhere between 2 and 99 amino acids put together, then it's called a peptide. And so one amino acid, just single amino acid, 2 to 99 is a peptide, and then 100 and above is a protein. So that's what a peptide is this binding of amino acids, and either in the body, it's either going to, a peptide's either going to be put together to be used as a protein, or it's going to remain a peptide, and that acts like a signaling agent to the body to be able to make different things happen.
Okay.
Does that explain it somewhat?
Kind of.
So basically what happens is you have that protein, that chicken, and the body breaks it all the way down to single amino acids, and hopefully we get it absorbed in the bloodstream. And then we know what happens if it doesn't get broken down all the way. We talk a lot about that we have a lot of clients, and doctors have patients that have problems when they don't break proteins down.
Are you trying to get me to say gout?
So like, absolutely. So, well, we see that, right? We see people get gout. We see people, like even a lot of clients, where they just get tired because their body's not breaking a food, protein or something all the way down. So the protein's broken all the way down to single amino acids in the bloodstream, then the body starts to build it back up. And if it builds it back up to 100 plus amino acids or more, it's a protein, bone, tissue, muscle, that. But if it only builds it up to a peptide, a lot of times it'll use that peptide to be able to signal the body to do something else. So let's say that your body needs more clarity and cognitive function. You need to be able to make better decisions. So the body will say, okay, let's take these amino acids in the bloodstream and make this peptide called Cimax or Selank. It's just a peptide that signals the brain to balance out serotonin and dopamine and all those things. And so the body uses a peptide as a signaling agent to make chemicals.
Okay.
So we take it a step further. There's a lot of peptides. So let's say the body needs help with just with recuperation and to heal, like you had an injury. When we're young, we heal real quick because the body makes those peptides to signal to say, hey, heal this area and all that. But as we age, we've abused proteins, and our body doesn't make those signaling peptides as often to heal as fast. That's why we heal slower as we age. And so we can give the body a peptide to help it say, hey, heal faster, and it'll go. And if the nutrients are there, it'll heal faster. Or growth hormone. It'll help the body produce more growth hormone to get the body going, to help with more anti-aging and things like that. So a peptide is a signaling agent made up of different amino acids to tell the body to do something. And many times it's telling it to do something that's very powerful, to help with chemicals that really help the body.
Got it.
So it's really neat how it does it. They're also called like secretagogues and that. And so they've been around a long time.
Yeah.
And so, we hear about it a lot. Hilary being a professional bodybuilder and athletes, and we use it with the Phoenix Suns and a lot of teams way back in the day, just to help people heal faster and things. And then it's really kind of taken on a life of its own. It seems like the last, 4
Yeah, I mean, it's been around for a long time, but just it seems like recently it's become kind of a hot topic again, or
probably social media.
Yeah,
has
probably
a lot to do with it. And a lot of people will say, well, is it a steroid? Is it illegal? What's the deal with that? And there's a lot of things with it. So I'll kind of quickly hit it, but I'd really like to spend the time just to explain some of the peptides and what they can do. And that way people are informed if they want to use them or not. But from the legality standpoint, peptides are just these amino acids. And because they're just amino acids bound together, they really can't be patented. They're nature's patents. They're just amino acids. And so that really torques off some of Big Pharma, right? Because they want to patent things and they want to sell them, and they want to own the rights to that one thing, that one drug, so that the world has to just buy their drug instead of like, hey, everyone go eat vegetables, right? They can't patent them. They don't want to say that because they can't corner the market and sell it, make a profit. And so because of that, the pharmaceutical companies that aren't real happy with peptides because they're having a hard time patenting them. And so you'll hear different things against them from, big pharma and different groups, even though they know their work. So what they do is they'll take a peptide, and we'll talk about it in a minute, and they'll add some things to it so that they can patent it. But now it's turning it in from a natural amino acid blend the body uses to a drug. And that's where the problem comes in, is that some peptides are drugs because pharmaceutical companies have bound stuff to them, and others are just the straight peptides that the body uses. And I think that that's really, really important to understand. And there's different types of peptides.
Okay, so let's talk about the one that a lot of people love for joint, for healing and for their joints, wounds, that kind of thing.
Okay, that's actually kind of goes against one of your goes with one of your favorite guys. There's an actual street name for these peptides, Wolverine protocol.
Oh,
Yeah. Well,
I do like that guy.
so they call it the Wolverine protocol because it heals the body really quick, but it's not doing it. It's a secretagogue stimulating the body to heal itself. So it's a nutrition.
So can peptides work better for one person versus another, depending on their nutrient saturation? If one person, lives a healthier lifestyle versus someone else, would a peptide work better for them?
Very, very good question. And the truth is that absolutely positively, because it's not the peptide doing the work. So if Hilary's eating a really healthy diet and taking in her vitamins, and there's very specific nutrients that the body uses to be able to help make chemicals and that, the peptide just signals the body to do it. But you need those nutrients. So if she's eating really healthy and taking her vitamins and I'm not, and she took a peptide, her body would take it and she'd get a ton better results because the nutrients are present.
I would imagine too, it kind of depends on the peptide that you're using, just how much that influences it. Right?
100%.
Yeah.
It depends on which one, because different peptides use different nutrients, right? Because they're signaling either brain chemicals or hormonal chemicals in the body and things like that. So back to the question about the Wolverine protocol. The thing about peptides is they have funky names, and most of them don't mean anything. They're just names that they came up with when they were created. But there's one called BPC157. And this one does stand for body protective compound. But BPC157, you might have heard of it. And there's another one called TB500. But BPC157 and TB500 are used as the healing peptides. So if people inject those peptides, then they notice a faster ability to heal, especially if they are eating healthier. They're trying to stay away from inflammatory foods and things like that.
And this is one that really helps with people that have had long-term injuries, correct? Somebody that's dealt with, let's say, like tennis elbow for a really long time, or knee pain, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And we've seen a lot of the doctors' patients that we work with around the nation, a lot of even concierge clients that have utilized the peptides and had injuries that, we've worked with them nutritionally, we put them on exercise protocols, we've done everything, and they just didn't heal completely. So that chronic, and then all of a sudden they'll take some BPC 157 or the full protocol, and boom, all of a sudden their body heals. And so it is extremely powerful. It's probably the most popular one that we hear about out there today. And so very, very good. No side effects to this one at all. And what I mean by side effects is sometimes a peptide will cause a reaction, and if you're not used to it, you get a little bit of a flush or things like that. So joint and wound healing used tremendously. It's probably the most used peptide, I think, out there today. And that's an injectable, but they have just came out with an oral one that's, understand that BPC 157 is a peptide made in the gut. It's actually made in the body, in the gut. And the body uses it to heal the gut. And so you do get that benefit from the injecting of the BPC 157, but there are some oral versions of that mainly are good for the gut. It's hard to get a peptide into the bloodstream orally. There are some special processes that it's able to get done somewhat, but for the most part, that's why they're injectable. But if you do an oral BPC, talk about gut healing. It's just tremendous. And you combine that with probiotics and a healthier diet, then it really just works wonders for people. So that's a very powerful, probably the most potent, one out there, I think.
Okay, so let's go into the growth hormone or anti-aging peptide,
Okay.
which would be CJC, right?
Yep, CJC, and it's very popular. In fact, I think in talking about it, I'll mention the legalities right now of it too, because what's interesting, just since, we're doing this podcast in November of 2023, and just last month, the FDA came out and they're having all the compound pharmacies. That's pharmacies that mix things together, right?
Right.
They're having all the compound pharmacies that they oversee not sell or even under prescription give out peptides anymore. So now the doctors are having to go other routes to prescribe the peptides, or people are going and finding them for research. And so it's really brought an interesting dynamic as to what they're trying to do with the peptides that are out there. But the legalities are this, is that doctors are able to still prescribe them. People are able to still take them legally, but it's a lot of times hard to find the peptide and find good sources because people can go online and order them, but it's kind of funky. There's also the ability to, which we're big fans of, because peptides are really being proven at a high level. There's some really good studies going on through what's called IRBs that people can get involved with the studies and be able to get good high quality peptides and still be able to take them and legally take them and order them and to be able to do. So there's different ways to go about it, whether your health professional recommends them for you or you get involved in one of those. It's a great way to go. But legally, I wanted to mention too for athletes, because up till January of this year, they were 100% WADA approved, meaning athletes could take any of the peptides. And then this year, like they've done with some other things, they said, oh, we're looking at peptides. So right now, don't take them. And I look forward to the end of this year, same thing happening. It's happened in the past where they come back and say, okay, the healing protocol, of course, it's much better for you than ibuprofen and Tylenol and all the junk out there. So, that one's good. This one's good. Or we don't want you to take this one anymore. And so we'll see what happens from it. So check with your organization if you're a competitor to see what their views are. There are some organizations that are saying, okay, we don't do steroids, but since this isn't a steroid, we'll allow it, under a prescription basis. And others that say, go for it. And others that say, nope, as long as WADA, the International Olympic Committee, doesn't say do it, then don't do it. So you ask about CJC. That's the growth hormone one. That's the one that a lot of athletes will take, people really interested in anti-aging. And CJC 1295, just the name of it. There's another one called ipamorelin. So CJC 1295 and ipamorelin, what they do is the same thing. It's just as, like the one for gut healing BPC, but this helps the body secrete more of its own growth hormone. But it's not growth hormone. So you're not giving the body something the body will quit secreting it altogether. You're giving the body a stimulus, so the body says, hey, all the nutrients are present. Let's make more growth hormone. Let's be able to have.
Which is the problem when you start going on hormone therapy.
Yeah, that's the huge problem, right? So if someone goes on hormone therapy, like female hormones, or TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, now their body quits secreting any at all because it gets used to it. I mean, our bodies are kind of like...
Well, it now is relying on the outside source. It no longer has to create it itself.
So it's like, hey, we're good, party, let's go put our energy somewhere else, because you're giving it to it from an outside source, different than a peptide. That's why I actually like peptides. So the growth hormone peptide's called CJC 1295, and it helps the body create more growth hormone. And people get tremendous benefit of helping with their strength, helping with body fat, and kind of like when you're younger. And so it's a real powerful peptide specific for that. And I'm a big fan of that one too.
Okay, how about a peptide for anxiety and depression?
Yeah, I love this because there's a lot of drugs out there for anxiety and depression, and some of them are needed, obviously, but there's, where do you go when you've increased your fatty acids, your nutrients, your vitamin D levels, which...
I feel like you're doing everything naturally.
Everything naturally, which help most people actually,
yeah.
Right? But then if you have some that still need that extra help, especially ones that have been on meds and their body's not quite balancing, There's a couple of peptides called Selank, S-E-L-A-N-K, and Semax, S-E-M-A-X, Selank and Semax. And they're extremely popular because they help the body balance chemicals in the brain, neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, all of the basic chemicals the brain uses to be able to stay focused and to be able to actually think happy thoughts. So we've seen some people, some doctors, patients, and people just turn their life around on Selank and Semax.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
it's been really powerful for them.
Yeah.
And so,
And people that have been able to be on it and then kind of reduce the drugs that they've been on as well.
big time.
Yeah. We're going to the next one.
I was like, look at it.
Oh, well, thanks,
Yeah.
Doug. Appreciate it. Okay, so what about hormonal balance
Yeah, that
outside of CJC? So what would be the difference?
good question. So CJC is more growth hormone.
Mm.
It's not like so much hormonal balance as helping with growth hormone. The more that we've delved into this and heard responses from the doctors, worked with clients, I've really fell in love with a peptide called Kisspeptin. And it's Kisspeptin, Kisspeptin. And the reason is this is a peptide that helps to just balance hormones. In fact, it's really used a lot for women that are trying to get pregnant. But it only works because it helps to balance.
Got it.
Right? And usually it's just an imbalance. And it's huge for men too, just to be able to create balance. I'm a huge fan of Kisspeptin, especially with anyone that's had any type of hormonal imbalance issues, and after we've got their nutrients where they belong. And we've seen that. We've seen
clients for sure.
that once we got them balanced, they were better, but there was something off.
They still knew that they didn't feel as great as they could feel. I think that would be the way, they still felt like they were over the hump of major fluctuations in their hormones, but they still knew there was another level that they could get to, that they had been to previously, whether it had been through drugs that they had been taken or, when they were younger. So I think that's kind of the...
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we've noticed there's been people that have been on prescriptions and that, so their body, even though they're doing everything right, still hasn't jumped back into balancing on its own. And Kisspeptin stimulates secretagogue, the body, to be able to then do it on its own if the nutrients are present. And so I think as you ask about that one, it's important for everyone to know again that in our belief, right, you take what we have and other people and you put together your plan. But for our belief, we don't believe peptides are first with anyone, really.
No. In fact, typically we will try to go through a couple of different rounds of blood work before we ever introduce peptides
at all. Absolutely. And there's another peptide in the world of Kisspeptin that's more of an anti-aging peptide, but many times it's taken with Kisspeptin. It's called epitalin. Epitalin, E-P-I-T-A-L-O-N. Epitalin is probably the most famous anti-aging peptide because it has research showing it helps with telomeres. Now, telomeres is like your DNA, and we look and we measure the length of a telomere, and that greatly determines the length of your life. So if a telomere, as you age, starts to decrease, right, you start to age and decrease as far as the ability of your lifespan. But if the telomere lengthens, it helps to expand your lifespan, and epitalin helps to expand the telomere if phytonutrients and antioxidants are present, right? The right nutrients from your foods or taking the right supplements. So epitalin, Kisspeptin, good combo. Huge fan of Kisspeptin. I think that of all of them that are recommended that we see from the doctors or the clients and that we work with and the doctors work with, I think that the big up and comer is Kisspeptin, just because it's a good balancer for people, and it's a great way to go. So I think that we still have the big one left, and this is
So this one is the one that is associated with the drug Ozempic, right? So this is the one that everybody is taking to help lose weight.
Yeah, can of worms.
It is a can.
So it's called semaglutide, and semaglutide itself is a blend of amino acids in its purity, just amino acids bound together, that really helps with what's called GLP-1. Just to simplify it for this podcast, it helps regulate blood sugar and to keep under control because in the 80s and 90s when we thought excess fat just makes everyone fat. Excess fat does. Like, to say it doesn't is wrong. But the main factor that we realized that when people cut out all the fat and added the sugar, it actually caused a worse problem.
Right.
You not only get fat, but now you have issues with blood sugar and that. So if you get blood sugar under control, that the majority of the time you actually are able to lose weight faster. You also lose the craving for excess food in the body. You have chemicals in the body that are secreted to make you crave food. And you have chemicals that are there to say, no, we're fine. And what happens when we eat a processed food diet by design from the food companies and fast food companies that are out there, then it changes those chemicals in the body so that you're always craving, even if you don't need it. And that's usually the way we live.
Right.
And what semaglutide does is come back and balances those chemicals and helps with blood sugar. So now people are eating and they're like, wow, I'm good. I don't need to eat more. I don't, usually like more, and they're able to push back. And in taken properly, then it actually helps people do that. So unlike a lot of nutrition and holistic people, I'm actually a fan of semaglutide if it's used properly. But the problem is the pharmaceutical industry, because they couldn't patent it, came in and added other molecules to semaglutide, Ozempic and some of these others that are out there, and they have additives in there. And it actually turns it into a drug, and there's side effects, and they're not taught to teach people nutrition first and to, better their lifestyle. And so it ends up being they go on it and they lose a bunch of weight, but they actually start eating way too few calories. They look gaunt, they're happy they're losing weight, but they're actually not doing their body any good.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem. You see that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have started to notice the look. It's like this, I don't want to say Ozempic look, but it's like it almost looks like your skin is falling off your face. I mean,
yeah. And a lot of people, they call it the zombie look.
Zombie look.
Right. And it's it really gets in clicks with people, like just large groups going. So here's some warnings and some input on semaglutide. I think that semaglutide can be used properly, but there's a couple things that need to be understood with it. Is if it helps you to, then it's easier to start making the changes in your diet, right? Eating healthier and improving that lifestyle because you're not craving as much and not overeating, then it can be great. Then you can go off of it and you've created new habits. But if you go on it and it's just cutting back the amount of calories you eat, you don't make any changes, and you're relying on this peptide, or in the case of drug, if it's not straight semaglutide, then it's going to cause issues.
Well, and the thing that you had talked about before, I think on BPC you said there were no side effects, but you didn't mention the different side effects with some of them. So let's mention, since we're on semaglutide, some of the side effects that you can experience with semaglutide.
And we hear that from people and friends, right? They get nauseated from it. And so nausea, usually from right after taking the shot. And it's only once a week. A lot of peptides are every day. This is once a week. And but nausea is a huge one with it. I think that, I don't want to call it a side effect. A lot of people think it's a benefit, but it can be a side effect, is that because it does reduce the hunger, a lot of people just choose not to eat and they're not eating enough calories. That's a bad side effect.
Yeah, no, it is. And then with CJC, you can experience almost a flush sensation. So that one we've different people have experiences with that. It kind of almost feels like your heart is racing. Your ears get hot.
Almost like a niacin
Like
flush.
a niacin flush. So
yeah, so
that would be kind of a side effect, although that one's not very long lasting. That one only lasts about 15, 20 minutes. What else?
And when I think that the key is with peptides is whatever the dose is from your doctor, whoever is recommending it, start low and work your way up. Right. You never start at a full dose, and that way you see if your body has. And a side effect really is a little bit different of peptide. What we're talking about is your body's now secreting chemicals it might not have secreted for quite a while. And you feel that, right? Like with the growth hormone one, you get that flush, or with the semaglutide, a little nauseated because now the body is regulating those chemicals.
No real side effects with kisspeptin or epitalin?
No, or BPC157. Really, very, very few. We haven't heard of any of the many doctors across the nation that use them.
Cool.
But semaglutide, I think that really, because so many companies are patenting it and adding molecules to it, it's creating so many different side effects. Best recommendation is, like we said, don't even go on it at first. Work on your lifestyle, your habits and those. And then if it's needed and your health professional recommends it, make sure you be on straight semaglutide only. And it comes with a lifestyle change. And I think that's the key
That's good.
with it. And then you're able to get those benefits. Actually, the health professionals we recommend, we tour quite a bit around the nation with Dr. Harris that speaks on this subject, one of the leading authorities. And he usually recommends taking, and I'm back 1,000%, taking like the Kisspeptin with the semaglutide, because then you get that hormone balance. You're not disrupting the system, and people are able to get good balance there. So semaglutide, extremely controversial subject, product. Never think it's first. I think if it is needed, it can be used properly to just act like the peptide itself, jumpstart the body so that you can more easily take on healthier habits, so that when you're off of it, you continue with those healthy habits. But it has to be done in a holistic program. If you're not following fitness, right, your mindset, nutrition, exercise, and supplements, highly don't recommend doing it, because you're going to be eating the same way. And when you go off, you're going to go back eating the same way, but probably more, and gain it back. And that's kind of the problem with it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that really one of the keys is to understand, with this is that we want to talk about a subject that's popular out there, something that we do work with a lot with the health professionals, but it's one of those that you really need to be connected with someone that understands peptides, because it's this gray line between the pharmaceutical world and the holistic world, and companies are trying to patent it and come out regulatory wise. It's an area that you just need to really make sure that you're connected with someone that stays up on the legalities of it, that knows the ins and outs of peptides, and make sure that it's someone that's recommending lifestyle first.
There you go.
If they're not recommending lifestyle first, I'd suggest run and look at it. So it's not a first thing. First is mindset, nutrition, exercise, supplement. But peptides can be a great thing. I think if they're the pure peptides that aren't patented, that's just amino acids, then it can be a benefit to your life. And we look forward to, for those of you natural athletes and people that are out there that are looking forward to the peptides and how you're able to use them within your sport, and that look forward to some new changes coming. I think you're going to see a lot of the peptides are going to be able to be utilized for sport, just because of how healthy they are for inflammation, healing, and those types of things in the body. Anything else you think about peptides?
I don't think so.
And then I know that the one of the big issues with that is just where does it lay in your program, if anywhere?
Yeah, and also I think that it can be mentioned that they're not cheap. Peptides are
Pricey.
a investment for sure. So for most people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, there's things out there like you heard of stem cells and different things. And let us know if you want us to go into deep dive in some of these alternative areas, and we'd be glad to do that on here. May bring on a few doctors to talk about it and that. But peptides is definitely one of those things. If your body just isn't responding and you need that stimulus to be able to get it going, and you're committed to that lifestyle. So a little different podcast this week, a lot more just kind of questions and answers, but we get enough from athletes, from the public, saying, what about these things? We've heard about them. We thought would address it here. So thanks so much. Look forward to a normal podcast next time. One more that Hilary is involved with, instead of just throwing questions at me. You're a good sport today. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll see you guys next time. This is Doug, the Formulator.
And Hilary, Miss Natural Olympia. Keep chewing.